Okay, welcome back to Camrose. So yeah, we're just finishing up our lunch break. We have John and Grant back. You can tell they're well fed. And they're going to talk about grain handling to start the afternoon. Go ahead, guys.
Thanks, Chad. Go ahead, John. You can start out.
All right, so the grain handling system, after the cleaning shoe, starts with the cross auger and the grain elevator system. Now, really what we need to talk about here, I believe, more than anything, is maybe some maintenance
Do you have a video that you
items
wanna
here.
talk
So the
about?
first step in there would be to make sure that the elevator chain is adjusted correctly. General rule with the elevator chain, there's an adjuster on the back side of the elevator. Have we got the remote camera? Maybe we could run over there and have a look at it here.
He's tied up over
He's
there.
tied up over there, okay.
If we had the remote camera, that would be really handy.
So on the back side of the elevator, there's actually an adjuster there. What you do with that is you're lifting the whole elevator head up to take the slack out of the chain. The way to properly check the adjustment would be to open the bottom door, and then you use two fingers, there we go, thumb and your index finger on the chain, and you still want to be able to slide the chain back and forth on the sprocket, but with all the slop taken out of it. That's generally how you would adjust that chain. If you can't move it back and forth, you've got it too tight, back it off a little bit. After that, when you get up to the top of the elevator there is a drive chain up there. Now, the drive chain for the elevator is the one that's really not the easiest one to get at. It's actually, you got to kind of access it through the grain tank, and it's a 60 chain. And that chain does generally tend to wear very fast. It's got a lot of load on it, and it's not in a very friendly place to keep lubricated, and it does wear out fairly quickly. So person does need to keep an eye on that one and replace as needed. It does have a spring-loaded tensioner on it, so it doesn't need to be tensioned all the time. So it kind of takes care of itself that way, but a person does need to check it for wear. Starting in model year, I believe it was model year 19, that chain was updated from the factory to an O-ring type chain. We found that with the O-ring chain, our service life on that chain, I believe, is at least double, if not more.
Double to triple.
Double, if not triple. It's a chain you should be able to buy out of parts, and it should retrofit onto older machines, because as far as I don't believe the length of that chain changed any over the years, so it should fit on the machines.
And if you don't want to replace with an O-ring chain, you can replace it with a standard chain.
You don't have to, but that O-ring chain is pricey, but you will get 2 to 3 times the life out of it. So it's peace of mind, because it is a tough chain to get at, so it's maybe worth the investment right there.
The key, and the other thing you should bring up at this point, is make sure 100% that your doors or your covers on top of that are back in place properly. I know a lot of guys like to silicone those doors up. So obviously I don't have to tell you this, but if you've cut through that silicone, make sure you put silicone back on there. We have had a lot of leakage, because of course those doors are sitting right inside the grain tank, right? So we want to make sure that those doors are on correctly.
Yeah, canola leaks there have been an issue, and quite often if there is a leak there, it tends to drop the grain right on the rotor belt.
On the rotor belt, yeah.
And can be good of a sore
rotor
spot.
belt gets a little spongy and slips, and
so that is a spot to definitely pay attention to make sure that we have the leak stopped. And like Grant mentioned at the beginning of all of this, for 22, there was an update made to that top cover to try and address those leaks. The downside of what they did there was, up until now, that cover has just been clamped on. When they make this update for next year, it's actually bolted on. So it's not going to be as easy to take off, but it should be properly sealed. So
and if it is properly sealed that we intend it to be, then that's not going to be an issue.
But that is your access to get at the top of the elevator too at some point if ever needed. Okay. One last comment I wanted to make in there was, last year, in an attempt to try and seal that up a little bit better from the factory, they put an extra piece of foam in there, and it actually ended up doing the opposite effect, because where they put that foam, when they clamped the cover on there, it actually held the cover up more and actually warped it a little bit and created a wider hole in there, and it actually leaked even worse. So just something to keep in mind in there, how much foam is in there and where it is, and make sure that is all clamped down properly in there. So Bubble up auger really hasn't changed. There is options out there for abrasive wear and for standard wear. I think a lot of them go out abrasive now.
Yeah, are most of you guys running abrasive or standard, Jeff? Just standard?
Yeah.
Well, I guess, if you look at the new ordering system that we have, we do kind of hide some of those prices in. We call them fast picks now. The sales staff don't always like them, but they do make it easier to get the proper combine for you guys. But don't be afraid to look at that abrasive wear stuff. If you're flipping a combine every year, yeah, it doesn't matter so much to you. If you're going to keep your combine for an extended period of time, it does cost a little bit more money, but how much does it cost to replace those parts often? And obviously if the parts aren't replaced and it's starting to wear out, then you're gonna have issues with unloading, you're gonna have issues with your bubble up auger, you're gonna have issues even cracking grain inside the grain tank, right? So, but
this is more of a parts issue or question, but there was guys putting the neoprene, was that a C&H thing?
No.
The neoprene, that was aftermarket? Okay.
so one of the sales staff here just asked about a neoprene, is it a neoprene sleeve or
It
neoprene?
was a liner for the
Liner for the flight
Oh,
on,
a neoprene liner,
for the
which
tube,
is,
right?
Yeah.
you bolt it in. And
Yeah.
it's not
I
a,
saw it for a while, but I think it's kind of gone away.
it's not
I
a
don't-
C&H item.
I don't
so-
believe that was a New Holland.
Didn't we
I think that was an aftermarket thing.
increase the abrasion on the bubble up auger already though?
I don't remember. I do not recall.
Anyhow, sorry.
On the tube itself or on the
On the flighting.
flighting? I do not recall.
I would, if you're going to do anything, I would definitely invest in abrasion on or heavier duty bubble up auger over anything, because that's the one that gets the most wear.
Yeah.
And these 90 bushel wheat crops guys are pulling off nowadays are obviously going to run through it faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Then after that is the tank, but then
Yeah.
the unloading auger itself. So
Well, let's quickly talk about the tank.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to do with inside the tank, but we do have options such as electric folding hopper toppers or manual folding hopper toppers. I presume you're selling mostly electric hoppers now. So a lot of guys will like the electric folding hopper topper. Obviously, you don't have to get out and manhandle the big doors. They're closing right off, are they not, on these
come
ones
right
now?
down flat.
Yeah, so they do close right off. The bubble up auger has to be laid down, but you won't get water inside there. So we all know that with the older style hoppers, we'd always get water in there. You get rotten grain in your clean outdoors. But yeah, now it's a little bit cleaner.
No, it's not a perfect seal, but it
No.
still
Yeah,
keeps about
yeah,
99%
it's pretty damn
of it
close.
out,
I think it overlaps.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the grain tank capacity is the same whether it's manual or folding. or
That's
power
right too,
folding,
yeah.
So
And
there's
the same on our 8.9, 9.9, and 10.9 now as well. It's all 410 bushel.
Yes.
Or 12, as we learned earlier, 12,500 liters.
Yeah.
Leaking problem with the fold out?
Well, grain would leak, I think, out of one of the front corners, and it'd come down right in front of the rotors.
Okay.
And I don't know anybody with that problem.
That's on the, when you're folding, so he's saying he's got a leak on the fold out?
I think when you're unloading in the front, there'd be grain would leak down, and it'd come
Oh,
right on top of your feeder house, right in front of the rotor. And that's the only place we couldn't find where it came from, but that's where they
Okay.
said it came from.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know whether that's been a common thing.
well, we're going to give you the deer staring at headlamps look right now, so. Yeah, yeah. So one thing to remember as I went through model year 22 updates is model year 22 combines are going to be able to shut down the cross augers and empty out that auger when you're unloading on the go, or for that matter, anytime. So I know everybody's been asking for it, and we've got it. So trade in all your combines and buy model year 22s. Right, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah.
These guys already have it.
Oh,
Oh, well, okay. 23s then.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess what is the unloading speed again on our augers?
Right. Today, on model year 21 and older, it is 4 bushels a second.
Right.
Now, when we introduced the split unload for 22, it actually increases to 4.5.
Right. Which makes sense, of course.
Yes. So there is a second benefit to that cross auger shut off, is we actually get a faster unload speed too.
Is the combine capable of carrying more grain in there?
Is the combine capable of carrying more grain than 410 bushels?
Add a little bit up.
I did not hear that question.
I don't believe that would be warranty approved. add extensions onto the hopper.
When you do measure the bushels, though, what is that? Is that struck or heaped or?
Heaped.
I believe heaped.
Just because I know if you use the bushel counter, it seems like you not in the 410s, but the older ones, we could get more in there, right? I mean, but it depends on the moisture, you know.
Yeah.
And the crop.
Yeah, moisture's
Not
a,
that we were trying to overload it, but just
No,
till
no.
you got to the third sensor.
yeah. The third sensor being the grain falling on the
Yeah,
cab. Yeah.
the third sensor is the grain on the
Yeah.
top of the roof cap. Yep.
Yeah. Cab grain.
Cab grain.
Yeah.
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 You know, there's not much to the grain handling. Essentially, you know, if you wanted to really dumb it down, drive a truck, unload, right? But we've tried to improve it and make it more efficient for you guys to operate through, make it easier for you guys to operate through. And more people are loading, unloading into grain carts. So that cross auger, again, shut off was man, they've been asking for that for like 10 years,
Oh,
I
it's
think,
been-
right?
been an ask for a long time,
We're pretty
yeah.
happy to finally be able to come out with it now. So.
Yeah. Especially if you can only get half the tank off and
Yeah.
just shut off the unloading auger full is maybe not sometimes the best thing to do. So, but
So, Chad, did you want to step in or
Any plans for scales? Like
Scales.
application has?
let me ask you a question? What would you want to use? So the gentleman's asked if there's any plans for scales in the hopper, like some competition have. What would be the purpose of the scales inside the hopper? Just to know what your actual weight is inside there
Thinking it's more accurate than the yield monitor.
than the yield monitor?
Yeah.
Well, we don't have any plans at this point in time.
nothing that we're aware of, anyways.
The
But
competition uses those scales more for their automation in their combines. We haven't talked much about automation yet today, but our automation isn't done, it's done completely different than everybody else's combine, right? It's not done off of weight and power in a lot of cases they're doing of. We're actually sensing air pressure inside the body of the combine. And that air pressure is telling us what we need to fix. And then our camera that goes on the clean grain auger, I talked about it earlier, our grain camera as we call it, it's detecting MOG, so material other than grain. So essentially between those two things, the air pressure and the MOG camera, that's what's detecting whether we need to speed up the combine, whether we need to shut down the sieves, open the, you know, whatever needs to be done at that point in time. So I guess at that point, we don't feel the scales are something that we need to have at this point. I guess one way to check it out is to dump it into a weigh scale, or a weigh cart, which I think most everybody does. You have to do that to calibrate anyway, do you not?
Yeah, I just thought if the scales
Yeah.
were in there,
Then you wouldn't have to do that calibration step.
feedback. And
yeah.
But yeah, you'd have to be obviously stationary to do that too, which I don't have to explain that to you, of course, but. Any other questions? Comments?
Anything from other branches? Okay.
I think the one thing that I'd like to say is, you know, the twin rotor combine, as we talked about thrashing being done right at the front of the combine instead of carrying the thrashing process out, is gentler on the seed. We've got a lot more seed to seed contact, which creates more grain, which makes cleaner grain handling. We don't have returns issues, which is part of grain handling, of course. Mm-hmm. We don't have the returns issues that other combine manufacturers do. And it's unfortunate that we miss on little steps like that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious, you say all the thrashing's done up front,
Yep.
then why did you put the rub bars all the way down the full length of the
So the gentleman's asking, well, if I say the threshing's up front, why do we have rub bars going the full length of the combine?
The job of the rub bar is to basically grab the material and move it.
Yeah.
And keep it moving. The concave is there to disrupt it. So, and that action between the two causes the thrashing plus the grain on grain. Now when you get out of the concave, we just keep those rasp bars there just to keep the material moving. Is kind of the general idea. Now you can't move the separator grates in relation to the rotor, but it's there again, like I said, just to keep material moving.
We've got a video out there that actually explains the thrashing process of the combine if you saw the video, you'd understand it a little bit better in that regard. Unfortunately, the video is with an S-cube rotor, so it's a little bit off. But when it's the grain on grain that's actually doing the thrashing, as we all know, with a rotary combine anyway, right? Versus a conventional combine where it's more metal on metal thrashing, right? But we're using centrifugal force to try and, so our rotors are actually turning faster than other combines as well. They're smaller in diameter and they're turning faster. So they're actually forcing a lot more of the material itself to do the thrashing. And again, the rub bars, rasp bars is what they're really called, not rub bars. People call them rub bars from the old conventional days because they would rub the grain out.
Yep.
Now they're rasp bars that are trying to, well, I'm going to use that word, but grasp the product and pull it through the combine. So maybe we should call them grasp bars. Well, I'm going to get that labeled and get it trademarked.
Yeah.
Think that'll go through? Anyhow, it's post dinner. Come on, that's the best humor I've got. Anything else? Did that answer your question at all? Like, you guys understand how the combine works. I don't have to go through that. Perfect. Well, that's grain handling.